Hello, my Richies, and welcome back to another episode of the Make Life Rich Movement podcast. My name is Sarah. I'm your host. And in today's episode, we are discussing one's relationship with God as a conduit to inner child healing. If you're new to the show, I am recently on a faith journey, but for the last 15 years have been on a spiritual growth journey that focused a lot on healing my inner child. There are so many things that happen to us, are said to us, are done around us in our youth in the most formative of years that really do follow us throughout life. And if you aren't careful, you will allow habits and people, places, and things that are no longer a part of your life to be in the driver's seat, kind of directing where you go and how you get there. And for me, there was a lot of inner child healing, certainly after my father passed away. Like any individual losing a parent, there's a lot to process there and think about, especially in terms of you having one less person that has known you your whole life that you can turn to for help, advice, support, compassion, love. And I started my spiritual journey first, and I relied on a lot of new age practices to help me feel better. By no means were they cultish or anything. It was just really allowing myself to just even anticipate what my body needed, what I needed, what my well-being needed, whether that was journaling or some quiet time meditating, which then turned into guided visualizations, which, have now turned into moments of like deep imaginative prayer for me. All of these things kind of came before my faith journey, which literally started 4 months ago, if you're new here. And in the time frame of me getting to know God and getting to know Jesus and how I fit into this whole faith world and faith journey, I began to realize that in order to truly meet God, you have to have a fair understanding of the trauma inside of you and the inner child healing inside of you that is quite literally waiting for this connection with God in order to fully resolve the healing. And I think faith provides a really unique resource for addressing our childhood wounds simply because it is an entity outside of ourself, it's outside of our family structure, outside of our memories, outside of the wounds that still exist from these times, people, and places that have happened in our lives. And I want to let you know that throughout this episode, we are going to not only explore how our relationship with God can create this sacred space for healing, but I want to give you some practical tips to not only start an inner healing journey, an inner child healing journey, if you're in that place. And we have a ton of episodes that just discuss entirely inner child work, inner child healing, and reparenting. They are not God episodes if you are not really feeling the faith journey episodes. There are a ton that are just working on your inner child work, reparenting, and a couple of guided visualizations to help you along with that as well. But alongside these tips, we're just going to be feeling out loud what it might be like to believe that there is someone out there that can take all of this away from you and allow you to heal yourself piece by piece, memory by memory, bit by bit. So the first thing that I kind of connected over the last few months with having years of inner child work under my belt and it having elevated kind of to a place to where I felt like I had done enough work on myself and been working in the general direction of inner child healing and reparenting for a number of years and wanted to share the results of what I had experienced, the teachings that I had gone through, what I had read, listened to, etc., that really helped me to untap and truly dive headfirst into my inner child healing. I actually started a class this past spring called Vision Tending, where I lead individuals through a 90-minute class of guided visualization and journal work that pertains to different ages throughout your life. My next class is focusing on 16, 17, 18. Very excited for that. And after that, I'll be moving into just different periods of our lives, our early 20s, finding a partner, marriage, children, like all the things, going through all the phases and journeys that we find ourselves in that have milestone moments, and assessing if, where, and when there are any little skeletons in the closet in that age group that need some looking at and some tending to. But in trying to understand this inner child work, there came a moment where I realized I had kind of hit the threshold. And in there being just now the recognition and the understanding that I've done a ton of healing, I've done a ton of work, I've given myself a ton of tools in my tool belt, there are still going to be moments where I am crying out for help to someone bigger than me. The help that I need, the comfort that I want is coming outside of myself. It's these moments of desperation or just true peak sadness. Like there have been moments where I've just been sad for things happening in my husband and my life, and like not wanting to burden him with that, or can't go to him with that for whatever reason, and feeling like I wish there were someone out there that I could give it to. And in those places it was like an aha moment. I was like, oh my goodness, Jesus. I am looking to talk to Jesus to feel better about this. And God is the perfect parent, Jesus is the perfect parent, and kind of exploring those theological perspective on God's parental attributes that deeply are intertwined with our life, and allows us to look at our human limitations with his transcendence, and know that although we feel these earthly problems, these earthly pains, these earthly fears, there is the ultimate promise of peace, of overwhelming love, of joy, of comfort, of serenity, just all of these things. And knowing that that not only exists in the future because of that perfect parent's love, but it also gives you the ability to let that little inner child that didn't get seen in the moments it needed to be seen, which gives you immense healing. I also needed to understand that my attachment and my faith and how my relationship with God can provide not only a secure attachment that doesn't need to be unnecessarily tied to someone else, but it gives you the security that you may not have, most of us did not experience in your childhood. I think there comes a moment in your life, especially when you grow up, that you realize your parents were like adolescents-ish, children-ish still, when they were raising you and they were doing their very best. And, there is, in essence, if you believe in a higher power, that one parent that doesn't need to try their best. Their best is all they give. And it is the best of the best because it is coming from God. And the ability to just also not anxiously attach yourself to your partner, to your friends, to bosses, coworkers, etc., because you need someone next to you to feel safe and comfortable. You can find that relationship and that secure attachment with a relationship with God, and speaking to God, and praying to Jesus, and just saying, like, I feel lost. I don't know how to make this feeling go away. This XYZ happened and I feel like a failure, and I'm so sad we're still in the same place. And I'm so sad that they're feeling this way ultimately because of me and, my lack of blah, blah, blah. And man, it just really allows you also to kind of reframe those childhood experiences with someone that can see through the past hurts and give you a compassionate perspective from a loving, all-encompassing creator that is able to look at you and say, I'm so sorry that happened to you. I know that you have been so confused about that for such a long time, and it led you to feel things about yourself that weren't true, but I'm here to let you know that you are worthy and you are so powerful beyond measure, and there was never a moment that I doubted you and what you were capable of, and you are capable of so much more, and together we're going to achieve that. And and saying like, oh, God is saying this to me. It's that inner knowing, that intuition you hear, and you're like, ah, peace. Ah, love. Ooh, an immediate removal of my anxiety. Ooh, fear be gone. Replaced with confidence, even if it's quiet. I knew also that, in focusing on a sacred space for me to be vulnerable, I was going to be able to come to God with my problems and not keep them to myself in a place where they're going to fester. And coming to God in a moment of prayer, whether it's on my walks in the morning, in the afternoon, or at night, and I'm just in nature, looking at the clouds, hearing the waves crash, seeing my dog play in the grass, watching birds fly, watching grass blow in the wind. All of that leads me to a place of just wanting to create dialogue with God and talk about what I'm going through and allow those childlike emotions of fear and anxiety and shame and just let down and betrayal to come pouring out to Him, and not feel like I need to curb what I'm saying or, feel badly for unloading my emotions on someone else, because I need someone to talk to. Giving myself a sacred space also gave me the ability to be divinely witnessed. I needed to have the healing power of knowing that someone has received what I'm feeling, what I'm saying, and they see me and they love me and they are giving me the loving presence that I was looking for. Oftentimes for me, it feels just like an overall warmth coming over my body. Sometimes it feels like a heart hug. Sometimes it feels like just a smile overcoming my face, or a deep sigh that I can let out that feels like it's got years of turmoil behind it. And in that safety, in that moment of now knowing I've established trust with God, and that conversation with Jesus is giving me a foundation for exploring difficult memories, difficult times from my past, as well as difficult moments in the future. That's ultimately going to lead you to really be able to go through your closet, go through the psyche of what has happened to you, and unpack it with God. Unpack it in a way that is going to allow you to heal and to expand and to grow into those dark parts of yourself you've hidden away for so long. I also figured out that I needed to have forgiveness in my back pocket as a healing path. And there's so much to be said about self-compassion through grace for yourself. I began to notice in this path that I began walking with God and allowing it to heal my inner child, it came with a lot of shame. It came with feelings of stupidity, of anger at myself for the things I had done, said, places I had been, people I allowed to be in my life, and the negative and angry and hurtful ways that I had inflicted myself into others' lives. And ultimately, I knew that I needed to give myself self-compassion, and I needed to give myself a ton of grace, because God gave me every step of that journey for me to be exactly who I am in this moment speaking with you. I just said this in last episode, and it allowed me to not only recognize that every single thing that's ever happened to me and will happen to me is happening for me and not to me, and it's because God has laid it out for me that way, but it gave me the ability to extend myself the same mercy that I believe that God has for me. And, I need to be kind to myself, and I need to extend the same moments of clarity and grace to come in with humility rather than judgment, because I'm getting nowhere by judging myself, and judging myself thus far hasn't gotten me very, very far along the path either. I also needed to know that forgiveness gave me the ability to go beyond the human limitations of the emotions that keep us in a place of resentment or anger. And in understanding the context of the fact that, like, those who hurt us were not only, they were on the path that God set out for them, even though parts of it were negative, but it is allowing me to forgive those that have hurt me without excusing their hurtful behavior. I am able to accept that what has happened has happened. I have moved past it. However, there's a certain feeling that I haven't been able to process about this person that's keeping me in a place of not being able to fully forgive them, aka let it go. And in those moments, I come to God and I ask for, just for God to take it away from me. The surrendering and the knowing that I can release this pain and emotion without forgetting what has happened just gives me the ability to surrender via a spiritual practice of prayer to God. I say, like Jesus is literally beyond me. I can't persuade these people to behave in any other direction than they are. Only you can do that. And I give it up to you. And I pray for a favorable outcome for everyone. I pray for healing and growth and expansion for everyone involved in this process. And I know that whatever happens is what was supposed to happen. And I thank you for that in advance. And I surrender the pain of that scenario without denying the reality of that scenario and how it shaped me and how it hurt me. And ultimately, how now I have this healing moment that I get to connect further with God on to be able to get further along in my faith journey and on my ultimate life path. The other thing that felt very important to me in my relationship with God and my inner child healing was reclaiming childlike qualities. There is such a beautiful amount of qualities that we are given, and they are outlets for gifts that God has given us to be able to excise throughout our communities, our groups, our families. And for me, I've always been an absolute beacon and like fire hose of wonder and curiosity. That's always been strong in me. And I'm thankful for it. But in diving even deeper into those qualities, it's given me the ability to rediscover spiritual awe. I find myself finding moments of just healing the cynicism that's been placed in me by culture and society with just the absolute beautiful awe, wonder, and astonishment of goodness, just life and the beauty of it, the blessings of a bird flying in the air, the buds on a brand new tree in spring, a decaying leaf on the ground at the end of fall. There's so much wonder and beauty within the ties that bind us all in this beautiful place, this world, this universe that God has created for us. And healing cynicism caused by early disappointments and structures and systems set up by, the powers that be and government and culture and society. They really want to get rid of play and creativity and trust and surrender and wonder and curiosity. And all of these things were things that you innately had in you as a baby and a child, and they were taken from you bit by bit, little by little. And engaging with God through creative expression and play and learning to depend on God in moments of needing trust or knowing when to surrender things that are too heavy for you, we are giving ourselves the ability to not only reclaim the innocence that has always been ours, but to work away at the human nature of sin and the way in which culture and society have completely set us up for failure in abandoning our morals and being kind to each other for likes and fame and fortune and money. The final thing that I knew was really important in my relationship with God and my ability to heal my inner child was having a community, and the community that I engage with be an extension of my inner child healing through God. Having a healthy spiritual family is important. I have asked God to bring me friends that love Jesus, and my goodness, has He delivered. There have been a number of women and a few men in my life that have brought me such amazing insight, inspiration, and ultimately brought me closer to God. And having a healthy spiritual family, people around you that support you and ultimately want to help, strengthen your learnings and the teachings that are coming your way. These faith communities can provide very corrective relational experiences. If you find yourself in a toxic family unit where you're like, gosh, I just don't see the reciprocity, I don't feel the grace, I don't feel the humility, I don't feel the unconditional love, finding yourself a community of people that are new with God and are learning these things also may be a really beautiful way to see how you can interact with someone with God in mind in a way that is going to heal the toxicity and the brokenness of what you grew up with understanding a family or love was. There's also such vulnerability with our boundaries, and being able to discern safe people within your life who represent God's care within your community is really important. I had a number of people in my life who had extreme organized religion trauma. And, I think they'd always considered me a very straight and narrow individual that used logic and my brain to get through life, which I absolutely did up until about 5 months ago. And it really sent a lot of people in my life through an absolute loop. And I am so thankful for the people in my life, like my husband, who have absolutely embraced this change with me and are very thankful that I am just happy and that, I could have become addicted or very entrenched in anything, and it's Jesus. And that's great because there's a ton of other things my addictive personality could have latched onto. There is also something to be said about becoming spiritual parents and how healing our inner child enables us to not only nurture others in our life with a greater wholeness, but gives us the ability to see the unhealed inner child in others, those that we find ourselves in conflict with, those that we can't understand and are tending to judge. It is really helpful once you realize that we all just have inner children within us dying to be loved, dying to be seen, dying to be heard, dying to be known, and that you can do that by seeing others simply with the love that God has always given you and that has been coursing through your veins since the day you were born. It's in there. It's waiting for you to connect with another soul that needs it. And you feel so good afterwards when you do it. I think it is the beautiful circle conduit of God giving us like a little extra boost when we reach out to seeing another person in need or just in need of a smile or a hello, have a great day, or I love your outfit, or beautiful weather, isn't it? Like there's so many things that can be said to lift another out of a place that you can see them in. And if you find yourself called to do that, just know it's a moment that God has given you to connect with another person and to fill up that internal spark, which I now know to be the Holy Spirit. I have 5 journal questions that I wanted to provide for you. This is a really sensitive topic, and I want to encourage some deeper reflection for you within it. And hopefully, these 5 journal prompts will help get you there. So, I am going to slowly state the journal prompt. There are 5 of them, and then you can pause to either complete the prompt or write it down if you'd like to do it later. So, number 1. Write a letter to God expressing what your inner child needed but did not receive. After writing, spend a few moments in silence imagining God's loving response to these unmet needs. Number 2, reflect on a child memory where you felt safe, loved, or delighted in. How might this memory offer a glimpse of how Jesus sees and cherishes you? If such memories are difficult to access, what would you wish such a memory might contain? Number 3, consider an adult behavior pattern or emotional trigger that likely stems from childhood wounds. With compassion rather than judgment, ask Jesus to reveal how this pattern served to protect you then and how healing might look now. Number 4, what childlike quality, wonder, play, trust, imagination, etc., do you feel you lost along the way that you'd like to reclaim? Describe one small step you could take this week to invite this quality back into your relationship with Jesus. And number 5, imagine Jesus as the ideal parent figure specifically tailored to your deepest needs. What qualities would this divine parent embody for you? How might viewing God through this lens transform your spiritual relationship? My Richies, that's all. I hope that your relationship with God and your conduit for inner child healing is just feeling a little bit more clear. I want you to know that you are not alone in this journey. Every single day of our life will be growing and evolving, but having tools in your tool belt that help you through the difficult moments and knowing that there is always someone there for you, namely God, that is waiting for you to turn to them with your issues and problems is so comforting. I thank you so much for tuning in and listening, my Richies. It is an absolute pleasure to have your time and your attention. And as always, make life rich.